Open Book with Susan Baier, the show where we get to know our local leaders and learn more about the people behind the titles. I'm your host, Susan Baier, and we're in Studio B in our Access Fort Wayne department at the main library in beautiful downtown Fort Wayne. There's a book on the library shelves called If I Ran the Zoo by Dr. Seuss. And it's not this guest's autobiography, but it could be. Please help me welcome the executive director of the Fort Wayne Zoo, Rick Schuiteman.
Hi, thanks for having me.
It's so great to have you here.
It's great to be here. And when I took over the job as the zoo director, my predecessor, Jim Anderson, actually gave me that book with a nice little note inside of it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That is so lovely.
It's pretty cool.
So you're pretty familiar with the book.
I am familiar with the book,
thought you
right?
might be.
Yeah.
Well, Rick, we have something in common. We have a few things in common. But one thing is we both spent quite a bit of time living and working in Southern California before we came to Fort Wayne.
Yes.
I was in Los Angeles, and you were in San Diego for many years.
That's right.
So you moved to Fort Wayne in the latter part of 2020, right?
Yes, I did, September.
To assume the leadership of the zoo. Can you tell me what that transition from San Diego to Fort Wayne was like?
Well, as you know, it was right in the middle of COVID.
Right.
I mean, it was a crazy time. So when you arrive, you know, people are wearing masks, nobody's shaking your hand, everybody wants the distance. So it was just an unusual time. You weren't getting invitations to go out to dinner and meet with people. So you had to navigate that side of it socially. But I will say, coming to the zoo, the team welcomed me with open arms. They were excited to have me. Obviously, concerns about who I was and what I was going to do and my background, because Jim had been with the zoo for so long and they loved him and they knew everything about him. So there was that uncertainty. But I would say that the team was so welcoming, and even the community is welcoming. Even though we were in the middle of COVID, I remember they invited people to come out and meet with me. The distance, of course, and there was a long line of people going up this pathway just to say hi and welcome me to the community. I wish I could remember all the people. You know, you're such in a daze, you know, it's just so much happening at once. I wish I could go back in time and remember all those people that met and said hi to me. But it was a really great experience, and we really love Fort Wayne.
So we both moved to Fort Wayne during COVID times.
Yep.
You had the additional responsibility. You are managing the major tourist attraction of Fort Wayne during a pandemic.
Yes.
What was that like?
Yeah. You know, I don't think I knew exactly what I was getting into. When I saw that there was a job opening in Fort Wayne, I looked at Texas for Fort Wayne. Then I realized, oh, wait a minute, it's the Midwest. All right, that's a little bit better than hot Texas. I didn't really want to go down there. And then I thought, well, what's a children's zoo? So I had to do a little research there. And then I started realizing, okay, this is a big part of the community. And when I got out here to visit the zoo in July 2020, I was really surprised, I guess. I wasn't expecting such a beautiful zoo. I don't know why. I was, probably those perceptions of a children's zoo, a smaller community. I'm used to the San Diego Zoo. But this is definitely a world-class zoo, and so I was just thrilled that I had an opportunity and a shot to get this job. So, yeah, I went through the process, and thankfully they offered it to me.
And here you are. So the zoo is so beloved in our community. How is it funded? How do we keep all those animals fed and healthy?
Right. It's a good question. Most zoos are funded by various ways, but one of the big ways is through some type of governmental funds, right? Taxpayer support. This zoo isn't. We are one of less than 10 zoos in the country, and there's hundreds of zoos that doesn't receive any type of taxpayer support. So we really rely on admission fees, memberships, sponsorships, and of course, donations. That's really the way we get funded. And so we're so grateful because the community does love the zoo. They do want to support the zoo. And so we had an all-time high membership count in 2024, I think 19,000 members. It was a record-breaking year. So that all helps the zoo feed the animals.
So I have an example here of how people can support the zoo. I have my friend, the Canada Lynx, here. So this is a bit embarrassing to admit, but if I'm going to admit it to anybody, I should admit it to the director of the zoo.
All right, let's do it.
So my cat, Toonces, is very thoughtful, and he buys me a birthday present every year,
Love it.
as well as a Christmas present and maybe even a Mother's Day present, but we won't go there. But for my birthday last year, he is very philanthropic and wants to care for his fellow cats
Love it.
all across the world. So he adopted a Canada Lynx for me. And I got this amazing certificate signed by you
Yes.
and this lovely stuffed Canada Lynx that
Yeah.
I'm very proud of.
The Canada Lynx, they're actually right outside of my office.
Oh my gosh.
And so I
I'm
can look
jealous.
out my back window and I can see them. And just the other day, I was looking out and I caught my eye, and one of them was looking right at me. And we had this moment of connection.
That's amazing.
Yeah, they're pretty cool animals, definitely.
Yeah. But what a fun way for someone to support the zoo
It
and get a
is.
nice memento.
It is. We were at the Home and Garden Show recently, and we have them there, and people were just going up and adopting all kinds of animals. They were loving it. So it's a really fun way to do it.
Yeah, we'll see what Toonces gets me this year.
Yes, I know.
So, Rick, what new attractions and features have come to the zoo since you took the leadership role?
Oh gosh, it's been so much fun. It's a great team. They're energized. They're excited to do new things. I'm excited to do new things. One of the things that was important to me was to keep the integrity of the zoo, make sure we're maintaining the beautiful zoo, stick to our mission. But we did want to make some changes because we want to continue to drive memberships, visitations. We want people to come to the zoo. And so we have added a few new things. A couple of the big ones would be Red Panda Ridge, which we opened in 2023. Beautiful new area for our red pandas. I think one of the largest in the country.
It's gorgeous.
It is gorgeous. It turned out really well. So that was one of the really big projects we worked on. Across from that, we created a new play element called Bamboo Forest, sort of a rope swing, zip line play element for all ages, which I love because families can get up there and just have fun. There's 27 different elements they can choose
So
from.
grown-ups can get up there.
Grown-ups can go up
Okay.
there. And so I've seen families go up there. My mother-in-law, she's late 70s. She went up there and had a great time. A guest told me last season that they loved it because it really built confidence in their kids. So that was a really fun ad. And then also we've spent a lot of time just working on exhibits, updating exhibits. We've added a few smaller exhibits throughout the zoo. So animal focus has been big, but also we've added a lot of events to the zoo, special events where, again, it attracts people to come back to the zoo. So we do dino weekends, or we had the big Bugabaloo with these giant animatronic bugs. And then just a variety of other events. We've had a holiday event. We've extended our Halloween event. We've extended our hours. We were a 6-month organization, and now we're 10 months. So that's because people love the zoo. They want to come to the zoo. So let's give them the zoo as much as we can.
Speaking of giving people the zoo, I know accessibility is something that's at the heart of your organization, of Fort Wayne. How is the zoo accessible for guests with disabilities?
The zoo's done a really good job with that, and we're getting better and better. But we definitely work hard to make sure that anybody that wants to come to the zoo can come to the zoo and can enjoy the zoo. So when we build new exhibits like Red Panda Ridge, we take accessibility, universal design in mind. If you're in a wheelchair, you can see the animals very easily. If you want to participate in one of the interactive areas, like the bamboo climb area, you can actually get a wheelchair into those spaces. For sensory sensitive, we took Santa, for example. We moved him to the gift shop. We turned down the lights. We turned off the music. We actually scheduled families to come in at 15-minute increments. So they wouldn't hear all these other people. It wouldn't be crowded and overwhelming. They had 15 minutes of quiet time with Santa. So we try to do those things. I will say that AWS has been huge and helpful with funding some of these projects. This winter alone, we were able to replace all the gravel in our farm area. It's hard to navigate strollers and wheelchairs and gravel, and so we were able to pave that whole area. And then also the boardwalk in the Asian Trek area, we've replaced sections to help improve the grade. thanks to AWS. And then we're trying to be smart about it. So when we built a new restroom, we had an adult changing table added. So again, all the amenities, trying to make sure everybody feel like they can come to the zoo and enjoy the zoo.
So you're wearing a very smart top, and I noticed that it says Fort Wayne Zoo. That is a fairly recent change because for years it was the Fort Wayne Children's Zoo. Can you tell me about the change?
Yeah, so for almost 60 years, we've been the Fort Wayne Children's Zoo. And this started back with Earl Wells, the original zoo director, when he was asked to come on board to help build the new zoo. So this was in the early 60s. He said he wanted to create a children's zoo because all zoos should be for children. And so at that point in time, it was about a kind of a fairy tale land with storybooks, like the Three Little Bears and things like that. And so they had the storybooks and these themes around nursery rhymes, and which was cute and made sense. But as time went on, those things slowly moved away, and the zoo got bigger and bigger and became what it is today, a world-class zoo. What we've found is there's consumer confusion about what a children's zoo is outside of the 30 miles away from the zoo. So everybody in Fort Wayne knows, children's zoo. They've grown up with the children's zoo. They know what a children's zoo is. But people visiting into town didn't know what it was and often would not come to the zoo because it was a children's zoo. People beyond the 30 miles would not come to the zoo because they didn't quite know what a children's zoo was. Was it petting corrals? They weren't sure. Even when I applied for the job, I didn't know what a children's zoo was. I had to do some research. So we felt like it was keeping people away that might want to come to the zoo. They didn't feel comfortable. In fact, we had an influencer visit us at the beginning of last season that didn't want to come, and they were working with Visit Fort Wayne, and Visit Fort Wayne said, okay, well, the next stop's the zoo. And he said, no, it's a children's zoo. I'm not comfortable. I'm a single guy. I'm an older guy. I'm not, it's just uncomfortable to be at a children's zoo. And they said, oh, no, you don't understand. It's a real zoo. And it took some coaxing, and he finally came and loved it. He thought it was beautiful. But one of his comments was, it's just confusing. And so we worked with the board for about a year, the zoo board of directors, and talked about making the change. Do we change the logo? What do we call it? And at the end of the day, we just said, let's drop children's, let's keep the same logo, and just, be a zoo for all.
On that note, what kind of activities does the zoo have for adults?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we actually started a program 2 years ago called Rock and Roar. And so the zoo would close at 6, and then we'd reopen at 6:30 for adults only, an adult-only crowd. So we'd have live music, we'd have adult beverages, we had specialty food. Most of the zoo was open for the guests to wander around and see the animals. The rides were all free for the adults. And it's fun because it's a whole different clientele that shows up, people that haven't been at the zoo for years, or it's a date night for young adults. So it's been fun to see that. So I did a survey of these folks to ask them what they thought of the event. What did they like about the event? And so there's a variety of questions, and everything kind of came in as a flat line of enjoying. They enjoyed the free rides. They enjoyed the adult beverages. They enjoyed the music. But there was this huge spike that went all the way up, and it was no kids. So they just loved having time at the zoo without having little ones around. And so we're excited. So this will be our 3rd year of it. We're really expanding the Halloween version of it. We're trying to be the biggest Halloween party in Fort Wayne.
Oh, wow.
People show up in their costumes and just have a great time dancing, riding the rides, enjoying the food. It's been really fun over the last few years. I'm excited to see that grow.
So I went to one last year, had a blast. I was entertaining an out-of-town guest from Southern California, from Orange County, actually, and brought him, and we just had a ball.
Yeah, it's a fun event. It feels more private, a little bit more special.
Yeah, it feels exclusive.
Yeah, not all the zoo is open, parts of the zoo, but it's still enough where you can wander around and see the animals and have a really fun night.
And ride the rides with no lines.
Yes.
Virtually no lines. Yeah,
right.
That was great.
Yeah.
One thing that really strikes me about Fort Wayne, as someone who's lived quite a few places, I think this community takes such pride and ownership in their assets, their attractions. I feel that with the library, and I definitely hear that about the zoo. Why do you think the community loves the zoo? What makes it so special?
Yeah, it's a really great question. But they do love it, and I hear it all the time. When I wear this shirt, they'll stop me and say, I love the zoo, or when do you open, or I can't wait to get back to the zoo. The zoo is a very special place and really well designed. I love how everything's in loops. If you go to zoos, most zoos, they're just pathways everywhere, and sometimes you get lost easily. There's a lot of brick and mortar buildings. They did a really great job with sight lines where you don't see a lot of buildings. You wander down pathways with running brooks, beautiful landscaping. You walk into Africa and there's this giant veldt with roaming animals. You don't see that at a lot of medium-sized zoos. And so I think the community recognizes that not only do they have a cool zoo, but they have a beautiful zoo that's a world-class zoo. And I would say one of the best zoos in the nation. I really would say that. So they're proud of it, and they should be proud of it. They have a great zoo.
So I know you spend a lot of time at the zoo, but occasionally you get to leave.
Occasionally.
What other kinds of things do you like to do in Fort Wayne?
Yeah, I still feel like we're in that new phase of exploring the community. So we've done a lot of exploring, but we've enjoyed Comets games. We've enjoyed the Tin Caps games. We spent a lot of time downtown wandering around. The Savor Fort Wayne event, for example, we've participated in that. This year, my wife and I, you start getting into the habits of going to the same restaurants all the time, right? And so my wife and I said, this year, we're going to try to go to a new restaurant at least every other week.
Oh, that's fun.
And so we post about it, and we challenge each other to decide where we're going to go. And so that's kind of a fun and different thing to do.
And you probably haven't run out yet, have you?
Oh, no, we haven't run out yet. There's a lot of options.
Yeah. That's another good thing about this town. You will not go hungry.
Very true.
There are so many great restaurants.
Yeah.
Rick, when children find out about your job, what's one of the most common questions they ask?
They usually ask if I can go into all the animal exhibits. Can I go in and touch the animals and interact with the animals? They want to know, can I go in with the lions or something like that? Short answer, no, I can't go in with the lions. I can't go in with the tigers.
That'd be a great perk.
Yeah, I don't know if I would ever want to do that. But there are animals where I can interact with, or I can go into their habitats. I will just say 2 days ago, I was invited to meet our new male lion. We have a new male lion that's joining us. I was not in the exhibit with him, but I got to feed him some goat's milk, and I got to interact with him.
Wow.
And he's really sweet. He's 13 years old. He came from the John Ball Zoo. He'll be out on habitat this year with our female. So I do get to enjoy perks like that, which makes it sort of special.
That's quite a perk.
It's a pretty cool.
Was that in the brochure during the recruitment?
Yeah, no, it wasn't, but it should be. My ops VP and I were walking the zoo yesterday and outside enjoying the fresh air, and I just said to him, I said, AJ, isn't it great that our job is to be outside and see animals and not in an office building? And he just said, yeah, we are helping make people's vacations better. We're, that's such a cool thing.
Mm-hmm. So you have a pretty cool job.
Yes.
Can you think back to your first job, and if there are any lessons from that job that carry over to what you do today?
Yeah. I think instinctively I go back to my time at SeaWorld. I was with them for 34 years. I started when I was 15 years old.
Wow.
And I think about all the guest experiences, but actually if I go before that, I was a paper boy, a newspaper delivery boy when I was 11 and 12. And when I think about that, my friend and I split up the route. So he took 150 houses and I took 150 houses. And he chose to fold all the papers, ride his bike around and throw the paper to the front porch. I chose to walk the route and hand the paper to the customer. And so I had that contact. Have a great day. And I'd write on the top of the paper, have a wonderful day, signed Rick.
Personal touch.
Personal touch. And I don't know if I knew it at the time, but it was about that personal connection, that service, that I'm going to leave that paper in your hand or I'm going to put it right there on the doorstep. Sure, he was done with his route within 30 minutes and it took me 45, maybe an hour. But it was that personal connection. And I think now, That's huge. That's what we do at the zoo, right? It's about the personal connection and that service.
So let's get into zoo favorites.
Oh, gosh.
Now, this might be asking like who your favorite child is, but do you have a favorite animal in the zoo?
So you're right. That's a tough question.
Yeah.
Because there's so many amazing animals at the zoo. So I sort of think about, like the sea lions. We have harbor seals now. Close to my heart because of SeaWorld. All my years with SeaWorld, we had sea lions and harbor seals. So I love them. Giraffes are such cool animals. They're so unique. The way they move, the way they interact, the way they look at you, their faces. I mean, pretty cool animals.
Yeah, they emote.
Yeah, they're so cool. But I have to go back to the lynx because they're right outside my office and they greet me every morning with a growl. And when I leave at night, they say goodbye to me with a growl and a hiss.
Gosh.
And
Just like my cat.
right? They're so cool, and I love that they welcome me and say goodbye to me every day. Now, one of these days, that growl and a hiss might go away, and they'll just maybe give me a little head nod, or but
They'll do it on their own terms.
Yeah, they'll do it on their own terms.
Cats
but
are cats.
I feel like
really
it's getting a little
that.
bit better. But yeah, the lynx are pretty cool.
I am officially jealous. I thought I had a good view from my office, but
No, it's cool.
that's
to see them.
amazing. So I have very strong opinions about this next question.
Okay.
But I'd like to hear your answer first, and then I will chime in. Do you have a favorite zoo ride?
So we've got 4, I guess you could say maybe 5 rides, which is also unique to zoos, by the way. You know, a lot of zoos don't have rides. We were the first zoo to have the endangered species carousel, and now zoos have them all over the place. So we were pretty special that way. I'm going to go with the boat ride because I just think it's so relaxing. It's peaceful, just the light bobbing up and down. I think it's a really wonderful ride.
So that is the correct answer.
Good. I was worried.
Because I've enjoyed all of them, but I am obsessed with the Crocodile River ride. I make everyone go on it with me and I hype it up and they say, is it really that good? And then afterwards, yeah, it really is that good. I would take all my meetings on that. I don't know if there's Wi-Fi out there, but I would be on that
That's
all day,
hilarious.
every day. Obsessed with it.
You know, it's a really great ride.
It is.
It's one of our most popular rides.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that was one of the perks of going to the adult event because usually the line is understandably kind of long because it's so
Right.
popular, but the adult event, you got right on.
Yep. Exactly. Rock and roar, got to do it.
Absolutely. Do you have a favorite zoo snack? Because you have some pretty fun culinary options out there at the zoo.
Are.
Yeah.
We've got a great chef. He does a lot of great work. We've got a new event coming up, and he's got a whole new menu for that. But my favorite snack would be probably the Dole Whip ice cream. It's so delicious. People are familiar with it because Disney has it.
Right.
And we have it. And it's really, really tasty. And then we can make it into this wonderful sundae, I guess we could say, where we put in Starry and mix it with pineapple juice.
Oh.
And
Almost like a mocktail.
yeah, it's really, really good.
Yeah.
And I enjoy that treat over at Matilda's.
Sounds
It's
good.
a good one. Got to try it.
I know conservation is at the core of what the zoo represents, what you do. Can you talk about the zoo's conservation efforts?
Yeah, of course. We don't talk a lot about it. We should talk more about it. So we take $1 of every admission and $1 of every membership, and we put it into our conservation pot. We've got 34 different conservation partners from around the country and globe, really, that we work with to help support animals and their environments. A couple of projects, in fact, we just had 3 staff members come back from the Mariana Islands where they're helping support the Mariana fruit dove. And so they just came back from working there for 3 weeks with other zoos that all have gone out to help support. One of my favorite projects is the Hellbender project. Now, I don't know if you've ever heard of a Hellbender.
No.
They're giant salamanders. They're found in rivers on the East Coast, including the Blue River, which is South Indiana, about this big. You're going to have to look them up. They're unusual looking creatures. We have them at the zoo, but they're behind the scenes. And so let's take the Blue River. They are down to under 100 of these animals left in that river due to environmental issues, toxins, and so juveniles don't survive. And so what we have done, partnering with Purdue University and a couple of other zoos and Fish and Wildlife, is we've actually taken 1,000 eggs out of the river and we've raised them at these different institutions until they're big enough to go back into the river. So at one point, like I said, there was under 100. Now there's almost 1,000 back in the Blue River thanks to these institutions raising these animals. So at the zoo, we've got a couple hundred hellbenders in the back that we are raising from egg to almost adult.
Wow.
And it's a pretty great project, and I'm proud of the team for doing it. We've got somebody who's specialized, that's what they do, that's what they focus on. They're not in the zoo, they're not working with other animals, they are working on the Hellbender Conservation Project.
That is amazing, and I will look that up because I'm very curious about what they look
and
like.
Next time you come to the zoo, let me know, and we'll take you out and you can see these guys.
I will take you up on that.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Great.
So our last segment is something we call the tail end with Toonces. Now, we talked about Toonces earlier. Toonces is my very spoiled, very opinionated rescue cat. And he lives at my condo, so he couldn't come with us today.
Okay.
But he did want me to ask you a question.
Okay.
Is there an animal in the zoo you think is the most misunderstood, that has a bad rap? Yeah.
This is a great question. I've never had this question before. I like this question. So 5 stars to him. Her? Him?
Him. Yes.
So I'm going to answer this in 2 ways. First, I'm going to say bad rap because they're in a zoo, and then bad rap just in general as an animal. So in a zoo, orangutans. People will go to the orangutan exhibit and immediately will say, oh my gosh, they look so sad, they look so depressed, they're on a concrete tree. The fact is, orangutans don't smile. Humans, we smile, but these great apes do not smile. In fact, if they were to smile, that means they're upset or they're alarmed or they're concerned.
Really?
So you really wouldn't want the orangutan to smile, but a lot of people think, oh, they're depressed because they just frown. That's their natural face, frowning.
They're projecting a bit. It sounds like the guest star. Yeah.
Right, you're using your human emotion
Right.
and projecting it onto to the animal. They live up in trees. That's where they want to be. So that's why our exhibit is actually trees. It's just 4 or 5 trees that they live in. That's where they want to be. Some people say, oh, you should let them go on the ground. We have water at the base, so they don't go on the ground, but that's not their natural place to go. They don't go to the ground. They live up in these trees. They're actually really chill animals. They love to take naps in the afternoon. They love to groom each other. They love to build their nests when it's time for bedtime. Another behind-the-scenes moment, I got to feed them the other day in the back. So intelligent. The animal specialist called them by name. The one that she called came up. We gave him food. Most animals will take the food and eat it immediately. They will collect the food and save it for later. Hands full, I'm going to put some in my mouth. Finally, we said, okay, you've had enough. And we said, okay, you're done. He left. We called the next one. The next one came up. Again, they collected it, ate some. Highly intelligent animals.
And they recognize their name.
They recognize their name. They know when to stop. When we're done, they move on. Pretty great animals. So that's my explanation for animals at a zoo. Now, animals in general, I might go with snakes because people think, oh, they're slimy and they're kind of scary, and they're not slimy. They're actually great for the environment. They take care of the mice population, things like that. But I'm going to go with hyena.
Oh.
Because if you watch maybe an animated film about hyenas, they're sometimes kind of low in the hierarchy and they're dirty, scoundrels, thieves, obnoxious, right? Hyenas are actually highly intelligent. They work collaboratively with each other, very social animals, and they're pretty amazing to watch. And probably one of the most dangerous animals we have at the zoo. And I know, lions, tigers, our leopard, very dangerous, but they are probably one of the most dangerous animals we have along with those others. So don't underestimate the hyena.
Well, Rick, I am leaving our talk today with a newfound respect for the hyena, so thank you for that.
Yes. Yes.
And fear. Thank you so much for coming on
bet.
today, Rick. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's been wonderful. Thank you for having me.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it.
And thank you for watching Open Book. Until next time, keep turning those pages.
Production facilities provided by Access Fort Wayne. Learn more under the Services tab at acpl.info.